Next to the information value, the so far like so within the four targets is like the four is like never know loading like the lips that all like all time right like definitely games with the liver and thinking of going definitely in the case of like the attack on Ron, that alone might be definitely the culprit might be saver. Definitely my friend that of the and definitely we might be aware of like saver having this that transformation like being for that aspect stealth might be within that using our transformation power that might be taking the form of that serious like monster form while committing all of that change in time uh, on the victim. Certainly might be like that they could the minimum then. So luckily I'm saying that the nail the nail of that what where they will use like a monster which like monster had found from that the cave might be definitely containing DNA of queens and that definitely so that that way the nail the DNA of like the nail the neighbor thing right now could definitely not be a match with like the blood sample of the figure like the scenario that I'm looking for the energy. And also the element then also that like yes like saver might be totally telling the truth about like the crash mark on like savers in like like Wednesday were like the reason for that might be natural it might be most likely due to like one's like powers like most likely identifying by now like one of the different person might be at like some trap kind of like situation impressive kind of like situation and most likely that the culprit might be used the limit system. Means might not only put that all in then kind of situation. It might be at that point like this that might not reduce to a shock or that may be works that save us that or might have been like so that doesn't Owen might have not been able to like, handle it. It might have been such an absolute shock for that one. And Owen might have felt about like saver as such an absolute good fire basically even went to the extent of like attacking Rowan to protect like someone like Wednesday would be along the range like Rowan might be at that point doing that sort of realizing kind of like scenario might have happened like might have had that absolute race towards like savior. So that definitely with that Rowan already having been able to have like telekinesis power like I'm saying that almost like we having like such telekinesis as well as telepathic power might be the case depending on the person like once like one might have had like on this like realization from that realization moment like once like thoughts might have been all filled with that absolute race and focused on failure and that might also bring like around that race to think like around might also bring like around like uh powers like intensifying to like the point of that on remotely being able to that affect Sega, which might be what might be causing Sega to some recently having all this lack founding nightmares as well as lack failure, feeling the need to like draw all this lack, repeatedly draw all this lack from affect the monster as well as like the monster, and then like painting of the monsters as well as like the painting of the monster even attacking the person that scratch on like serious neck, or it might be the collective result of like that, of the collective Indian rage thought of like a trap about and the person going towards like failure. Might be like that with the situations that might experience. Yes, so that definitely I'm seeing that strengthen from like the DNA testing to certainly not be mentioned and that going on the different that the stuff again into like OKC Wednesday as like Wednesday and Wednesday's finding like an absolute waste or just like fine and basically from that going on the different of Galpin to like not all to those all trust on Wednesday and from that going on the usually Wednesday actually finding that the actual proper findings of that contrary evidence and bring it to lecture Calvin. But like I'm even at that point, like the things of the police, that this incident, this current incident where like I'm looking the DNA just to like not match like they didn't do that like in a project man like I'm really lecture Calvin totally like not even bother to like not even take a look at like the findings of like Wednesday of gave to even give Wednesday not even from the no sense expecting the scenarios that I'm going to develop. So like I'm looking at the second temperature and so different gas things, not at all like trusting or even bother to like give any attention at all to like Wednesday even though Wednesday that's repeatedly I'm trying to like want like yapping about a lot of things. So it's like the scenario that I'm until eventually I'm becoming like the percentage of like yapping getting into like the proper and the kind of situation where like I'm just like plot to be like scenario to be most likely Wednesday along with that thing maybe along with that Tyler maybe coming to that first skill and solely due to that Wednesday and thing and Tyler that it's showing up at that exact moment like due to that Wednesday finding that Wednesday by then like might be aware that like maybe calculation like some failure that so definitely that way through that ended up like Wednesday, acting and kind of like he has been getting saved and different because they through such a manner only like instantly but in such an in such scenario where I'm different. It's only at that point that like Calvin would be actually trusting Wednesday. Uh, it's definitely and Wednesday's finding definitely like there is a scenario that I was living in for him. So right. There's a like still in my information that let's say that might be the pick up the like Wednesday and that we might be having that extreme fear of like basically Wednesday investigation that comes to like the monster eventually during Wednesday to that serious trouble against like the monster like the public of like the monster like the initial next target ending up because of Wednesday might be along the lines of that deep fear like that Saber might be having. Definitely might be so that we are spring that Saber and stuff and might be only seeing that the entire play has basically like basically going to the Ravens with like the entire play has like a try to let's say the code that only used to like basically so that like in between like the Raven flags or like figure to like put that up to set need some like the Ravens and basically so that like figure to like stealthy without like when they're finding out like to like totally take this fight and like let's say will be along the line like say that the field of the thinking of as like a strategy right now because like Figure will be the only thing that will stay will be the only thing that like Figure has to like the Ravens uh with like the entire players and that way that was such a tragedy that Figure might be able to extend this fight on like Wednesday and ensure that the protection of that Wednesday even like Wednesday would be along with that Eugene would be going up to like the game with the most up to like stop check the most would be along the line like favor at present might be including that relief that might be like lift the new friends. Okay, so like the my very much innovations that like thing as well like the and thing as well might be that person might be really worried and concerned about like Wednesday just with like Eugene alone like going up to like the cave to like stop like the stop like the most of my three like the middle so like suddenly what thing might have fight out in the fight on the fight of might be like this like invitation false invitation to like hide up so that like to like the exact location of like the cave monsters cave in the very exact might like the right so that like the when they would be having that backup of that file and definitely I'm bringing in the Wednesday might be planning on like taking things along with her while heading on to like the go to that stop like the notes of like that is still things might be definitely feeling strongly that basically of like the also like things going wrong and definitely Tyler would be definitely uh that add backup of that Tyler would be definitely necessarily get on the lines like things might be during a process definitely that way, according to my experience, of the point like on the night of the Raven said that on Wednesday, the second team will be like stand stay and hiding close to like the cave and basically waiting for like the monster for like I'm definitely trying on that night like actual thing monster which might definitely being a continent for anything not showing up and instead like in the different like savior in the very exact monster form that basically savior like totally showing up like in the scenario that I've so like the scenario that I'm referring for like initially that Wednesday along with that Wednesday along with the teaching that waiting close to that while hiding close to that cave and that definitely Tyler that will be literally from a distance and Tyler would be walking towards that cave because like the cave might be exactly like the meeting spot that like thing using that the type person might have type on that letter to hide out might be like it is that you know so that we are trying kind of before like making it to like the cave like and getting attacked by like the monster savior. It's like the scenario that I'm going to go like savior by going up while I'm the point was to take a while for like savior to like only with that absolute stealth to escape from like the ravens from that with that absolute stealth from like the entire side of the entire side finding out is definitely going to them. So like that way that saved by the time savior will especially escaping from like the ravens and will be like making it close to like that cave, that monster cave. Like at that point, like I'm the different saver probably seeing Tyler's walking towards that cave. So like at that point, I was like saver probably seeing that situation as like an opportunity, as like a real big opportunity for like saver to like take out Tyler. So like that way, like I'm like saver like good attacking and trying to like take out Tyler at that point. So, like it's enough that so like definitely at that point, like Wednesday and Eugene who might be hiding and he might have known seen Tyler like walking towards that location, like hearing Tyler's screams and like quickly Wednesday along with that Eugene that quickly run into that exact location was like Saber. would be attacking Tyler like was not there. So like the moment Wednesday along with like Eugene would be like showing up that so different like the most of like okay quickly seeing the on seeing Wednesday like like the most of people are running away. It's like the scenario that I'm literally like the most of savior like people are running away is like the scenario that is but like right before like the most of savior would be running away like Wednesday is been noticing that the car marks the exact very exact car mark scratch car marks on like the savior's like neck on the neck of like the monster like that being Wednesday noticing that when as like the monster immediately running away it's like the scenario that so like at that point I'm considering like Wednesday would have confirmed in her mind that the Savior is in fact that like Wednesday's suspicion was like totally right and that like Savior was in fact like actually left the mods up. Yeah, along the lines like Wednesday would have confirmed with her mind and definitely understand like Wednesday could be get I don't know something like after like Wednesday would be considered like a time or like something like Wednesday could be going like Chef Galpin and like definitely Chef Galpin that quickly going up to like the hospital and definitely at that point I'm just going like Galpin to be in an extremely enraged and serious manner will be going up to that setup of like Tyler and his leaving and I'm whispering that Tyler most likely from like injuries maybe being in like an unconscious kind of like state. It's like temporary unconscious kind of state. It's like the scenario that I remember. So like definitely I'm whispering that an extremely enraged and serious character would be at that point like working up towards like Wednesday and would be getting Wednesday in such an upwards enraged and serious tone to like stay away from like this Tyler the along the lines like Captain would be fighting Wednesday and that was the prime of that it was to be at that point that like an enraged girl simply be telling Wednesday that like the DNA test is not a mess and basically for like Wednesday to like leave Tyler alone and for like Wednesday to like even stop wasting like the wasting like Galton's time and everything it's like the scenario that a bit the and also okay, so that definitely my very impression right now is that like it might have definitely been downhill that might have say stage expert perspective, right state definitely might have very impression. So that it might be either through like sponsors like using her like unique powers of like her plans like might have been able to like control that the better get more stage expert like one possibility that I'm inferring. Possibility that I'm inferring is for like maybe once like an individual that better side like I'm saying might be uh, another individual but like the very same Medusa like turning into stone power alone that might be able to like undo that alone might be having the capacity like undo another individual like better get uh, might be like the case like the possibility that regardless of the fact that Lisa might have been constant like involvement is that content was like out on that very night that like Ajax was certified like delivering that content might have been like the first to like find Ajax and like a thing like in that certified state and that results might have been content that might have said Ajax from that certified state it's the leak might have been and the play of still in a web pyramid it might have been the leak Eugene himself that might have stepped free by changing up like the towel from like the number of like it might have been using like most likely Eugene's like secret telekinesis power, which like in terms of cinema inference most likely Eugene might be have it might have been a cunning and villainous act of like Eugene that might have to like only better by Ajax while due to like most likely like Eugene most likely knowing that like Ajax was like about to like meet up with like anything left on that video night. So like if that was happening, it might have been the Eugene himself that might have done that. It's definitely my opinion and something on this. Also definitely I'm so prepping for like on this very night itself of like the Ravens I'm so prepping for like anything similar to like it's not me witness that Ajax with like another it's definitely for like the Raven showing up for like the Ravens that definitely anything that of witnessing that is like the scenario that I'm and anything that I'm preparing that not being able to like handle that so that I'm preparing like instead of like making up scenes in front of like Ajax like I'm totally prepping an extremely encouraging associated that anything lab naturally that stepping out on like the middle of the night and I'm preparing most likely for like it for to be on the night of the Ravens for to be most likely a full moon night. So like we are preparing that on this very night of like the Ravens when I'm preparing for like anything lab to like finally have complete like wearable actual for wearable transformation happening on this like very night and like the player that points out that anything that so like losing control of like and definitely will be rampaging through. like the spot close to like never more on that following like in that web form. And I'm different that way like the victim like happening on this video night of factoring. Apart from 20 meters remission like definitely like I'm preparing for like say the attack on initial attack on like the night of friends like say the initial attack on like kind of it definitely happen effectively in the scenario that I'm doing. But like apart from that like I'm preparing like the victim happening but like like the boss was to like never more, but like definitely that illusion I'm trying to get taken out by an uncontrollable and rampaging anything clear in that where focus like the scenario but I'm probably like another frame which is so like definitely in the case of like the victim alone like I'm looking like for the not for like the incident for the to like not be the culture but instead like anything like without stuff even being aware of it like ending up actually being like the culture that's the in the scenario that I'm also പറയാൻ expected. Also, like what Lee mentioned the reaction right now is that like, it might have been a lecture and post in that the instant past they were like their parents that might have turned down been for like no figure might have been that the case of the situation and the what might have happened might have been that motivation might have probably projected then what might happen might have been motivation might have projected at the relevant post and definitely at the relevant that might have been such an absolute shock for like at the rainbow. And definitely I'm looking for that might have been definitely due to like next year. Back then might have been exactly like Wednesday and like might have been the big focus on like the mysteries that might have been going on even back then in like the past close to like now and everything. So like definitely exactly like the at present how Wednesday's like only focused on like the investigation and finding out the full connectivity with the monster and everything. Definitely there might have been definitely mysteries even back then while Moffitt means as well as like the rainbow one of our students at like Nevermore might have been the case, like, and it might have been on that investigation to figure out the code. That it might have been like the only code of like Motisha back then. And that way, like Motisha might have projected like Edgar Allan Poe might have been what might have happened. And definitely for like the Ravens, like Edgar Allan Poe might have totally gone with like another girl. That was like neither means nor like Motisha might have been what might have usually happened. Definitely might have been so like my very impression that like we get later on what might have happened might have been that we might have ended up becoming like the girlfriend of like at the run and go. And basically eventually after like graduating they might have even got married. That means as well as like at the run and go might have gotten married and like eventually after like like in the rate of years like they might have also got divorced themselves might have been what might have happened certainly when they get like even though it was like they might be at present they might be in good terms with each other and might be sharing that common goal of like bring about like the destruction of like that with their family. Definitely might be the definitely my friends and definitely they might have in between that things might have gotten correctness with like any similar and definitely I'm different at that point like they might be once like any similar was born like they might have seen like any similar as like definitely they might have straight away like according to their realistic and plan like and like things might have still been hidden like that this information that like anything lab is that leads that I find that things might have gotten anything lab to a past performance. It might have been at like a first month that like anything lab might have grew up before like entering now or more. Might have been like the case definitely month 300. So definitely I'm that it might have been all to hide like the principal information that like in as well as like Edgar Allan Poe like the parents of like anything lab might have been what like been as well as the current board might have been restricted and might have been all for like due to like them even caring about the destruction of like the Adams family and to eventually bring about such a destruction to like eventually use in its similar as to like as like a tool to bring about like that destruction of the Adams family will be along the lines like we might be as well as the current board might be at present like might be even to the present might be realistic they're simply seeing for anything like might be like the case with Lehman frameworks. And this might be the reason for like teams ensuring that like anything that is like the roommate of like Wednesday, it's not like when they join like November. Might have been even pre-planned by teams and the like the spreadsheet might be like the activity of like the group like a possibility that I'm saying. Okay, but yeah, I'm still gonna make a bit of that like content might be things is that younger sibling as well as like might be along with like our child big on and definitely that it might be that long after like being joining never more that like content might have even joined never more in the just box might be the case that way that content might not be aware of that games is that projection during the at like then might be the case that you know Okay, so like me, the potential are actually going to believe that that black trust that can say like might be that black trust that like motivation like the symbol might not be what like the parents definitely like the symbol definitely so that like I'm looking that maybe the other person that I'm looking for like the raven that I'm in like even though I'm sitting in my friends like exactly like when fate might have been like solving the mysteries and like the investigation alone that like even back then like not just might have been only in that I'm looking like as like a cover for like I'm going to need motivation might out only uh, use like there are also like invitation to like motivation for like the ravens to solely as like a cover with the new framework so like the like a current goal might have things like games might have like painfully and next and in the next game race and just might have witness like motivation dancing with black as well as but like the ravens yeah wearing the exact same um, black sort of that like West like was definitely might have more understand like dudes at that point cell phone because that might have sort of thing embraced that like you might have stayed with stormed out of like the Ravens. But that one so might have been what might have happened definitely on frame and definitely what might have happened might have been like soon after like dreams might have stormed out like and like definitely Movie who might have been only focused on like solving spray and like investigation might have only most likely might have tricked Edgar and Co. That in between like Sedan Black and different that Morisia as well might have definitely left like the location of like the Raven and to navigate me. Those are like nighttime investigation involving like the street of like might might have been what might have happened like the past 50 development. But actually there are different for like stand and Tyler and become the Raven for a while. And definitely seeing this like Wednesday while dancing with like Tyler at like the Ravens like so that very same black sort of that like which was during her time that like the Ravens like might have been like the case of Newman of me James on witnessing this getting like extremely feeling that up range within that point was definitely the scenario that I'm looking at. Yet like I'm looking at upper lag dancing for a bit with lag at like the Ravens with like Tyler and looking at was probably will be feeling that basically now Tyler might and it would be so productive at that point would be only seeing how like Tyler is like probably happy with like the dance and everything. So definitely I'm going to bring at that point. So like at that point, like when the turbine state would only maybe feel that they feel now like we can go to steadily leave the Ravens and head off to like stop like some of sort of like the day with their arrangement they will be the league so that never bring like Wednesday. So yeah, at that point, maybe a review about like in depth at that point, so, like just to like the way of the monster and definitely I'm bring Tyler, but yeah, at that point, we definitely deciding to like join let's say and do something to that let's say definitely because like Tyler will definitely worry because of like being like the cave of the monster and everything that need Tyler definitely going around with like let's say it's like being the scenario that I'm doing with the young friend. Then certainly also printing for that was in similar like showing up to that the Ravens that without a date, without asking anyone. So due to that, maybe that show up in similar like expecting the surprise from that Ajax at like the Ravens might be like the case of the minimum for Ravens. So that's and that way like I'm different like to anything that once like she so the different of like to like the Ravens and at that point of it's like stuff being hard talking being like Ajax that thing with like and but at that point of time, like Eugene as well would be exactly a person right there. And definitely, I'm looking that then you definitely Eugene might not definitely see in that day that was like and so like definitely I'm looking like Eugene would be probably patiently waiting for like anything left to like show up. So basically, at that point, while anything left, if not talking like a for the thing for like Eugene most likely I think anything left once again for like the dance at like the rail. And definitely I'm also like any singular like like I cannot think like a sport and craftsman of short like Fuji and basically anything that's coming out of like the Raven and I'm still remembering that like from that very night like anything that it being a full moon night and anything that like on turning into like that enough set into the different so yes, like technically like very interesting price like while using the library for like the amount of all know at like the cave location of so lecturing right now for like the scenario to be enough likely while using would be that patiently like what's staying here and like would be patiently waiting for like to work at like that cave and like hours like passing and with you not showing up and like engine may be getting tired and as like engine will be about to leave like at that point when I was whispering that most likely Eugene seeing that the monster and I'm whispering at that point what to not be like the monster but like the what to be like where about minutes in the was like the scenario that I was whispering and whispering. Okay, so like for the manifestation, for different ones like Wednesday and Tyler was going up to like already like talk to know just be like we that would be extremely rate and won't be able to like and seeing Wednesday in like the very same black outfit as that of like Moteja. It's like not cover back in like the right and like the might be the case definitely was a chance definitely for to not be just like we that would be getting extremely enriched seeing Wednesday, but like favor as well and definitely trying seeing Wednesday dance at like the ring with that Tyler Lankan definitely like uh, at that point of different favor as well to feeling extremely enraged and that like so different after like the Ravens while Tyler will be returning back home. Goal was like Tyler returning back home all alone and on this like way back at level to like save your like Stephanie breaking up and like transforming into like and at that point I'm so preparing for like Sega to like transform into like not perform and me attempting to like take out Tyler that was never that but like at that very last second I'm liberating Tyler at that point will be shocked as actually start seeing like the giant like monster uh, which like Tyler won't be realizing that it's like Sega and like has monster will be about to like attack Tyler at that very last second I'm preparing like most like you can stay like making her enter like calling out like Sega's name and like basically standing in front of like quickly showing up and standing in front of like Tyler with wide protecting Tyler of Sega the monster Sega like the scenario that I'm doing. So like at that point like the monster Sega like not being able to like not like Tyler and instead like would be so extremely enraged and possessive and get like different like the monster Sega from here running away at that point it's like the scenario that I'm definitely during this such a scenario I'm totally cutting like Wednesday totally definitely focusing while dancing and like the ravens definitely and like the black Tyler like at that point of time Wednesday would be carefully observing favor definitely and would be clearly like seeing like the facial expression of like favor like the changing and like favor getting extremely enraged and like like seeing like Wednesday dance with like Tyler. So like left that way like Wednesday some totally running so they totally expecting like Sega to like attempt an attack on Tyler in like Sailor's like motor form. So that they to catch uh Sailor right handed at that point like Wednesday will be even seeing like the race in like Sailor while Wednesday will be dancing along with like Tyler at the race like Wednesday like instantly planning such a strategy uh, like the scenarios that I'm looking and that way like Wednesday usually catching like they got right handed while Tyler will be on upper the raven will be on quick way back and so it's like the scenario and what about it like I'm experiencing yet like even after that like and at that point like Wednesday will be feeling totally satisfied because like Wednesday's like theory Wednesday will be totally feeling as like theory through so like Wednesday would and would be really excited for like the next day to reveal all the crucial information to like Alvin. But like I'm relaxed the next day, like Wednesday, getting like the shock news of like basically the DNA test of the DNA test like not matching is like in the scenario that I'm looking at. So like that way, like the streak that like Wednesday at that point will be feeling as like Wednesday had solved like once again growing into more of like a puzzle like kind of situation more like Wednesday, like the scenario that I'm going to bring along train. Okay, so like, but me, my brain right now that like failure might have one outreach day failure might have done this like mural painting of like actually a representation of like painting of like a representation of like the Nevermore Academy as like just like Nevermore Academy. I think have a lot of like gargoyle like people like statues like and something like it might have been like that gargoyle like people might be seen as like the symbols of like Nevermore symbol for of like might be Nevermore Academy might be the case of Nevermore and it might be such a symbolic representation of like Nevermore like painting that like Sega might have most likely thrown up with like your on outreach that might have been like to which like I'm definitely putting that's the reason for like kind of might have most likely had like an objection towards that your saying might have been most likely due to most likely I'm spreading that Tyler's like grandpa Jalvin's like father might have been taken out in like the past uh, elections above like at like the cost of like never might have been like a case that minimum average. So definitely that might be even to the person remaining of the like unsolved case. And that as well might have been like the Galpin might have investigated that as well, might have been like when the September might have been investigated so that that as well like the for the investigation like it might have been seen as this like very same kind of like most of attack might have been like the case but remember the emission. So definitely Galpin as well as like Tyler even to like the person might be believing that it's like someone from Nevermore that might have been like the culprit behind like the loss of like like first family member might get organized like they might be into but certainly my question so carry a so definitely this might be the reason for like certainly like kind of as well as Celtic might be having just like towards like the Nevermore academy might have been like the case certainly on but the confirmed president so the neighborhood like attack might have happened maybe like just about back when like most was like I mean were like students at like Nevermore Academy. Maybe it might be then that like I'm doing like Tyler as well as like Tyler might have lost like might have been like the case of minimum preemption. So certainly there might have been multiple attacks in like the possible like Nevermore right multiple victims are happening certainly when so like the people of Jericho even back then might have believed that like they might be like the legendary see someone from that Nevermore Academy. The like the thousand kind would attack the demons. That way like the people of Jericho might have like certain extent of like this like just like towards like the certain extent of like people of like Jericho might be having like certain extent of like a dislike towards like the Nevermore Academy. And this might be the reason for like Tyler naturally like Tyler and his friends might have actually politely like told Savior to like basically to like erase away that moral that Savior has to like Jericho of like symbolizing maybe of like that painting of like the dark world might have been like to remove that painting like Tyler might have initially maybe politely told Savior might have been like it, but like I'm saying Savior due to savior that saviors like jealousy of black and style liking kind of uh, rather than savior like everything like savior might have responded back in a mocking manner towards like Tyler might have been like the exceptional person. That might be how which then that might have been what might have been inspired into that fight between like Tyler and his friend and like Savior and the destruction of like Senor Lassel might have happened that way on like every day or that happening that might have happened 2030 might have been very contract. That they let the fight and like the destruction of like failures that more of which that might have all happened through such a manner might have been like the case in level praise. Okay, so that's the need might have more ambition right now that like it might have been as the content of like games that might have stored up to that the game and that what burn might have been the books from like the secret library the promotion books of that around that might which might have contained like crucial promotion drawings of that basically in which like front to those promotion drawings in those books like and like so far like things might have been happening ever since like Wednesday joining that more things might have been happening things that have happened in that Wednesday like after joining now more might be exactly that might have been thrown out in like the promotion or from like the step up when like around was like a student at like and was might have been like the case with minimum trend. So definitely on the furniture might also contain like books that containing that future promotion drawing of that one's month of containing that the events that's like events like focused on Wednesday that's like about to happen within more and like involving Jericho as well as like Nevermore and everything. Events that are about to happen and that might be contained in like those other multiple user promotion points containing this which like owns not might have drawn and might be at present might have been at present like stored at that secret library and definitely on the spring uh, and definitely on the spring mail that Beams and Thornhill might have made copies of it and like might be the reason for like Eugene like earlier recently like seeing in like the middle of the night like Thornhill like entering that secret library might have been definitely according to like Beams' product definitely makes range so definitely Thornhill and Beams or might be having like same goal of like bring down the restriction of the challenge and the definitely makes range so for like to prevent like landscape uh, from like basically discovering those books and basically finding out like the future event that's like about to take place in like one space like within like Nevermore might be like the reason for that. It might have been those books that might have been sort of to the cave and uh, might have right now and might be right now being burned. It might be like the actual situation definitely might be very emerging. So like definitely according to like things, it might be according to like things plans like anything like content after like taking so all those like root books from like the secret library that James might have made copies of it and might have stored it at like some totally different location away from like Nevermore where like James might be actually like at like James of actual hope might be like the case that which might be maybe at like a Jericho's that Newman's 300 so or like with like at like indoor place like in maybe like the might have been shifted because like I'm typically my presentation that like indoor means and conflict may certainly be certainly like the same role of like the discussion in that and certainly my presentation. So certainly it might have been like the books of like the Twitter promotion running of that from like secret library that might have been right now point. It's definitely not creating so like definitely one of the renditions are like since like when they just figure that sort of like the game was like wearing a code like but it might have been the most like the while using her code to like hide all the bits that she made out of within like the field scope and basically with that just like dropping like the books at like the cave and basically that quickly burning up like the book might have been what might have happened if the was surrendered. Okay, so like the minimum potential right now that I spent like we as well as like profit at present is like still present at like the Ravens like at the Ravens location the league might have been the key road that might have sort of just like wearing like the book to like the game and might have burnt the book definitely might be the so definitely I was bring like with like that person who want the book like having the text of having seen Eugene definitely I was bring like Eugene definitely most likely going missing without much created it. There's like things of scenario that I'm or like I'm leading off of about it like Eugene getting expelled without much created like Eugene getting expelled from that and like lower positive that I'm looking about the friend and my other friend. And once again like games using the medicine strategy of that using games that transformation power to like basically have Eugene and like depending on that fake acting with like being taken the form of like Eugene and basically like the news about like Eugene getting expelled and we with like similar manner like they saw him taking wings the guys as like Eugene in the car like expelled Eugene over like it's like scenario while like Georgian Eugene along with like Rowan will be imprisoned at like maybe at like some location deep within like the box close to like never some secret building close to like another things something like the pop with like it's like the other also developed in that way like Eugene getting fit into like some kind of like state along with like the along with like top and point it's like for the like the clothing can are there are the final brain it's also the film and the film of new or like anything that most like they haven't even shown up to like never know after like completing all the preparation of like basically to eventually have like once like the none of this friends would be executing their plan to like get revenge on Wednesday at like the Ravens. Like at that point they were like their plans to like straight away back on that itself like or the necessary preparation for that to happen like like preparing like anything similar might have done all those preparations. And it might be only after that that anything similar might have even showed up to that the Ravens might be like certainly the case in the middle of the Ravens. It is like technical for instance right now definitely for lab for to not be red paint but like actually blood that might be coming out of like this sprinkler might be the case technical so like that way I can just bring that at like the rate of second like all the other students like running out of lecture in building except for Wednesday and Tyler as well as like as well as like Syria and as well as like all the students who have like the powers of like vampires like who belong to like the vampire group with like the vampire powers like understand them or like so different from the sprinkler like to like the effects of like sprinkler they could like so different like they are like them like totally enjoying even more at like the rate at that point and they like the vampire groups at that time got like thank somehow at that point like the scenario that I'm looking and like the like or even like dance less getting even more active towards like the end was like the into scenario that I'm looking of them. Or like it might have been like Tonkin as well as like Kimbot where like the Kimbot might be like the person that made out with the book that made out stealthy burn those books at like the cave from the frame and while Thornhill might have been keeping watch stealthy keeping watch might have been like the case of Levan and like hence like Eugene even noticing that underneath the grasshopper, something like basically at that point, like maybe that grasshopper might have been thought it might be having the trust or like transform into like any force-based creatures like the popular animals. So like maybe that grasshopper might have been thought it's also like a possibility that I'm looking at. So definitely that way like this might be the reason for like that since like him just now only returned back to last the Ravens like I'm looking like in between that time that Norton might have like left off to like give that back up to like Kimbot while Kimbot might have been while keeping watch while Kimbot might have been to that afterwards might have turned those looks at like the game. So like I don't think I'm something different. Like by now it might be not just like games alone that knows what that once they having like vision powers and like no feature, but like even content as well as like inbox as well through games might be at present aware that like let's say of having like the power to the solution. But like at the same time, like all three of them being strong, which as well as keyboard might be not so aware that like through contact that like the vision gets like triggered for like Wednesday. Might be the case with new information about this, like not even being might be aware of that. So like even while Green Sun back when like Green Sun not sure what students are not just and what is like visions like even back then Green might have not figured out that basically through like contact that like message was like having all the meeting. This fact crucial factor like bring like change even to the person might be very unaware that need might be very much. So like when the right now especially for like since like downhill right now have like first hand experience of like witnessing downhill like making contact with like Wednesday and like Wednesday instantly having like submissions like right in front of like downhill like definitely I'm different made most likely downhill right now because we having sugar that basically it's through contact that like when state that which is get triggered and which we content giving this like information ASAP then to that range as well as timber is like residential. Just like the scenario that I'm saying, and definitely from this point on itself, I'm looking like range as well as like content as well as timber from point on like avoiding all contacts with like Wednesday. Then while passing things to like Wednesday from this point on, it's like the more likely possible to Wednesday. Okay, so like definitely my particular impression right now is that like the powers of like both ways and content might be such that like these might have like the power to like transform to take any transformation, whether like human or like monster or like any form creatures of like and might be like the case for like these like the ultimate transformative so might be was like things might be having. Okay, and like in the case of like Timbot, it might be that Timbot might be having like the power to like transform only into a werewolf might be electric for electing work. And in the case of that Thornhill might be able to like transform only into that first-based animal creatures like the grasshopper or to a butterfly or to that all sorts of creatures like connected to that plant life forms that closely related to that plant life forms like forms and anything. As well as like Thornhill might be also having that the power to like control like the trees as well as like vines as well as plants and everything move graphs and move the growth and like movement of that graph and plants and everything might be like a human thing. So like definitely I thought like the most of that like chasing Eugine might definitely be in the in or like the other shop might be like the case in the neighbor for everything while Thornhill earlier while Kimbot might have been chasing after like Eugene that Thornhill might have been also beside Kimbot the werewolf symbol in like thought it might have witnessed it in her grasp of the form might be like the case. Self-reveal in her grasp of the form might be like the case that mean information. It might be the reason for like the moment that someone made contact with like Wednesday seeing the exactly this instance of like basically Eugene being chased and everything which definitely might have been the reality. Yeah, so like the lead like was very interesting right now like me that like back when like everyone was attacked by like the monster which still unit perimeter that monster back then. And that at that point might have definitely been saved up and definitely one state even passing out back then after that telling to the back place to that call Sir Calvin like definitely putting that back then like them scared passing out might have been actually Chelsea cause that passing out of Wednesday might have been actually especially caused by content of like it's made my the since like the definitely from the different to like the grasshopper like Eugene the unusual graph of that like Eugene had noticed before right before like spotting before like noticing like the mysterious person wearing like the coat at like the tail like wearing something like that. We have two different that graph of that Eugene notes that unusual graph of that Eugene notes back then might have definitely been found in like transformation using our transformation for which is like we might be related to that transformation like a graph of that we might put in. So definitely I'm the suffering fountain might be having all sorts of like unique kind of powers and it might be using those powers that with that aspect stuff like at the suffering which might have been definitely uh fountain while taking such unique kind of transformation that might have felt me that came close to like Wednesday might have been back then after like the attack on that once like after that attack on that Wednesday while she might have been all alone while waiting for like the sort of fill up show up. Like at that point, like maybe at that point, Dawkins might have sent his new stuff on Wednesday. Maybe it was like a Jurassic Park shop or like any other tiny selfie from creature and that might have still be cause like the passing of that Wednesday. Might have been what made have happened with the film brain. So like definitely I'm different like the perfect situation that like the situation of Eugene as well and something like a similar scenario happening where like that Wednesday I'm referring the scenario to be that Wednesday along with that something that carrying that Eugene uh, and basically carrying Eugene and trying to get Eugene out of the box uh, to like the town to like the near hospital in like the town. But like I'm sitting along the way in like the box, like I'm sitting like Wednesday, nothing is happening out and definitely sitting that as well, definitely gently being caused by conflict. Is like in using like context like doing office like this now that I'm supposed to bring and that then I'm looking like Wednesday we are getting back consciousness like I'm to bring like Wednesday most likely like Chef Galpin like standing right in front of that Wednesday and those move Wednesday at that point would be like panic would be in a panicky manner would be asking Galpin about like what where's like Eugene and everything would be about like the Eugene surviving and everything. So like at that point I'm just trying like Galpin asking Wednesday to like what is she even talking about? We didn't like that Galpin would be asked. So but yeah, at that point I'm totally trying Tonkin as well totally stand right beside Galpin and like Tonkin at that point like telling Wednesday that like Tonkin had found Wednesday in a passed out and unconscious state in like the middle of the talk. Uh, would be along the lines of the like Tonkin at that point you'd be sitting on that no, say getting and would be like would be like in front of that Galpin and like the scenario that I'm different. So definitely I'm spring like recognize it according to like the quick line by Tonkin definitely able to bring that significant difference in that like of not even being thought of him what might have been even while being aware that Wednesday has inverted like an just power of that being able to that have vision that still the fact that like the vision that upon the member most likely might be triggered through contact like maybe about the sporting fact that made the being of contact of import might be even aware of the member and so that the moment Thornhill made contact with like Wednesday with the one like position of trigger with it like Wednesday. Like, at that point, it's like I'm considering that this exactly might have been like the quick plan that like Thornhill might have that might have been present on a scenario for like Thornhill for like the addition to like get triggered like when Thornhill made contact with like Wednesday. Might have been a great so like the quick plan to that like Thornhill might have projects uh, or like Thornhill at that point when Wednesday ran out to that the phone while telling Thornhill about like basically about Eugene in danger like at that point September Super and like Thornhill might have quickly gone up to like main friends might have gone being about like just uh that situation they are in as for like Wednesday or not let the bomb. So like at that point maybe it might have been being that might have told Thornhill about this like strategy and that way like I'm preferring once again like just like once again that we're getting framed definitely like in like the case of like concept in front of like Sheriff Galpin as well as like in front of like the students of like nevermore like I'm preferring like Sam Hall and that you know like totally like strongly believing that like Wednesday has the like nurture hallucination because like at that point I'm totally preferring for like all about the reason while content will be saying this to like Wednesday while Wednesday will be waking up on the stage for that. So different Wednesday at that point, like telling Calvin that basically that wasn't like hallucination that like Wednesday actually saw. that Eugene being attacked. So like at that point, I was referring that Eugene showing up in front of that, let's say at that person, which as well according to that the exact strategy that like we used in the case of like Revenant. So like when like we using that very exact same strategy in the case of like if the attack on like Eugene as well to by Eugene. So using the transformation power like showing up in front of like Wednesday and Sheriff Calvin. But taking the form of that Eugene is like the scenario that I'm being told about. So like when we are that much of like seeing that Eugene, like the scenario that I'm being told about. And definitely able to bring that Calvin at that point, like feeling as if that fixed in his mind that there's legal state that you have this like occurring hallucinating. So like the scenario that happening. And like once like when you return back to from like returning back to like Nevermore campus, like at that point definitely able to bring that the students like basically make making fun of like Wednesday. By then, like all the students, the majority of the students would have like found out about like Wednesday, and would be feeling that Wednesday, then everyone would be feeling that Wednesday have this black account and and they would it's like the scenario that I'm going. So like exactly like in Kong's case, like I'm delivering that without necessarily like that spelling of that Eugene as well happening at exactly like in Kong's case, like I'm delivering like Stone Hill, private that the and they sleep. Uh, that website of me finding out about like the current news of that exactly like in first place like the general will get it and like Eugene being while the confirmation form of like Eugene that walking up to the car and at that point I'm looking like Wednesday that trying to like talk to like CP and about like this sort of feeling and everything. So the player was bring exactly like in around here like and that Eugene as well that so they acting out of camera and basically without saying anything to that much like at all like much to like that or like music getting also like the car and those at that point itself on the spring definitely Wednesday at that point as well I'm so different from like think most likely to the and think most likely let's take to insight into like the car. Yeah, like I'm in this time as well I'm different that the into like tragical they as doing things like I'm different like the second time as well like think not being able to like figure out like the interest like transformative strategy. So that definitely I'm different like think that way that following that following Eugene, but still at that station, at the train station, like anything, like once again, like think of the missing losing sight of that, losing sight of like Eugene, that scenario that I was engaged. And definitely, preparing for like any scenario, to the scenario where like another student as well, getting attacked by like the monster and like, definitely able to like another experience as well of like another student as well happening. And definitely I would bring that by then. That at that point, I'm going to bring that even stay as well as like things would be that well and fully prepared to like figure out the truth behind like the mystery of like the certificate experience. And definitely I'm going to bring like things once again like following once again like following that cars while going to bring that Wednesday maybe stealthily managing to like leave Nevermore and like making it to like the train station along with like Tyler's help and like from there uh like skills that have to skills like Wednesday as well as like things like together like attempting to like uncover like the truth of the chemistry design like the digital expecting and definitely a percent was to be in like the third explaining that explaining strategy that like wins with the of the game that so different what's the end thing maybe even with like either's as like together like while they're just putting in that effort like finally figuring out that like wings work that wings have transformative power and the fish that means that taking all this like actually of like own as well as like using as well as like third student this is actually into field of scenario that I'm visible like from and I'm different for like until that point like the situation of like can say even at that point would be totally that the entirety of like the student or like the majority of like students that like never got like not at all sick of believing anything that will stay in the same like except for like maybe in similar along like like the majority of the students are like never more like starting like not take Wednesday seriously and anything that Wednesday would be saying like this will be okay. So singing around the night of like that's like of like saying things out about hallucinating which is like doing just an art that I'm going to go on train. So like that there's an automatic tension that liberating without like created at all for like an expending of like Eugine as well, such like in earthquakes like happening, and I'm referring that while this will be happening, like especially like someone was referring in the case of like Rowan, that the actual Rowan might actually be alive and might be that you might not only put like the actual Rowan at like some building that might be currently within like the force around like Nevermore in an in-person kind of like in an extended type in-person kind of like situation might be like the situation of like the actual person or in that within that building might be like the case that Milan friend. He might be put into like such an extremely tight some kind of like situation that like even if like around like telekinesis or like around might not be able to like free around might have attempted at that like multiple times and might have still failed. Might be like the situation of like also like I'm doing indirect like building that so like in that there is a building along with like the original of the present like around a 40 like after the like soon after the like current attack on like Eugene by like the north of like that different Eugene of straight away being transported to that very same building. And like the original Eugene as well said like around like along with like around being put into like that kind of like state with like most likely being most likely placing that cluster on like the mouth of that word around as well as Eugene as well to finance them budget. That's the Vincent scenario. Parang personal na parang naman